going to show you to make a button closure on the back of a cushion, a 16-inch square cushion. I'm going to have 2 pieces of fabric, 16 by 10.5. Now the extra 2.5 inches, normally half of the back of a cushion would be 8 inches, but the extra 2.5 inches is to allow for a turn in, and also to allow the button band to fit underneath the buttonhole band. Okay, so this, first of all, I'm going to do the buttonhole band. So I'm going to take my piece of fabric and turn in about 1/2 inch. And press. And then I'm going to turn in 1.5 inches. It might be a good idea, if you've got one, to use a quilter's ruler for this, to make sure it's accurate, because you don't want to turn in too much or else your back will be too short. There we go, 1.5 inches. Now, in order to stabilise the band before I sew the buttons on, I've cut 1.5 inch piece of medium weight interfacing. So I'm going to open up the turning. I'm going to put the piece of interfacing along the fold I just made. Make sure your interfacing is not too long, like mine is here, or else you'll find it sticking to the ironing board and you'll end up getting glue on the iron. So if it's too long, just trim a little bit off the end. Roll this over again, and then just press, and this will stabilise the whole button band. I'm going to fasten my cushion with 3 buttons, 3 equally spaced buttons. So what I'm going to do is put my ruler on the band that I've just made. When I talk about the button band and the buttonhole band, this is the buttonhole band into which I'll stitch the buttonholes, and the button band is the one that goes underneath to which the buttons are sewn. Okay, so if I place this on here, again it's 16 inches long like we did with our ties. I'm going to mark at 4 inches, 8 inches and 12 inches. Now most machines these days have 1-step buttonholes, and this is something you'll have to look in your sewing machine manual for. Okay, so as my buttonholes are going to be about 1 inch long, I'm going to do each one 1 inch long and have a corresponding button. This of course depends on how big you want your button, but if your buttonhole's 1 inch long, you can have your button about 1/4 of an inch shorter than that, and it'll fit through the hole fine. So it leaves you quite a wide choice of buttons. Okay, in order to mark my buttonholes, I'm now going to leave the ruler in place, and I'm going to mark 1/2 inch either side. And this lets me know exactly where my buttonhole is going to be. Okay, and there we are. 3 buttonholes marked. Now we're going to do our buttonholes. I've attached my buttonhole foot. I've selected the automatic buttonhole on my sewing machine. Obviously this will depend on the kind of sewing machine you've got, so do check your manual. On this machine, once I've made 1 buttonhole, all the next lot of buttonholes will all be the same until I switch the machine off. It's remembered in the memory of the machine. So I'm going to start my first buttonhole and let the machine know how long I want it to be. So press the foot down, so the needle is positioned exactly over one of the marks that I made for the start of my buttonholes. So do you remember when I marked the buttonholes, I made a mark 1/2 inch either side. So off we go. Now I've come to the first bead, which is one of the zigzag pieces that go down the side of the buttonhole. In order to get the machine to remember the length now, I need to press the reverse button, and now it's all automatic. The machine will finish the rest of the buttonhole on its own. That's the first one complete. So now, as I say, the length of the buttonhole is in the machine's memory. All I have to do is put the presser foot down and let it get on with it. And there we have 3 buttonholes complete and ready to be cut open. After you've trimmed off all your loose threads, you're ready to cut your buttonholes. So you need a seam ripper. And rather than cut them from one end to the other, where you might risk cutting through the bar tacks at the end, you start at one end. As I said, start about 1/8 of an inch in from one end and cut into the middle. Just like your cutter glide along. Once you're halfway along, take it out, turn it round, and there we go. 3 perfect buttonholes. So the next stage is to prepare our button band. I'm going to hem this exactly as I hemmed the buttonhole band. Insert the interfacing strip, and then once done I'm going to line them up and sew my buttons on so they match exactly. Once you've ironed over the hems of your button band, you're going to have to stitch it down because it's not going to have the buttonholes to support it. So just put a few pins in. You can do these from the right side if you want, right or wrong side, it doesn't really make any difference. Okay, although it does make it easier to sew on the wrong side because you've got the folded fabric to guide you. Okay, so we'll just stitch that. Okay, make sure you put it back to straight stitch, medium length stitch. Line up the edge of your presser foot with the folded fabric. Make sure your needle's in the middle, which mine wasn't. And off we go. And there we are, 1 button band ready for buttons. Once you've stitched your button band, you're ready to line it up with your buttonhole band in preparation for your buttons. So just line the 2 up, making sure the folded edge of the buttonhole band matches the folded edge of the button band. Make sure your edges are completely square, put in a few pins. Hold it all in place, because the last thing you want is for it to move around while you're sewing the buttons on. Okay, there's several ways you can do this now. You can either put a little pin through the buttonhole marking where the button has got to go, or a bit of trusty tailor's chalk. Just slightly open the buttonhole and mark the centre. If you've got one of those pens that marks either a tailor's chalk pen or one that disappears within 48 hours, you can use that as well. Now I'm going to sew my buttons on. Now you may remember in the last section I marked exactly where the buttons were going to go. So what I'm going to do is I've threaded my needle with a double thread, strong double thread, put a knot in the end. I'm going to bring the needle up exactly at the point the button needs to be. So there's my mark that I made. I'll take my button, I've just got a 2-hole button here, and I'm going to sew it on securely. Probably with a decorative cushion like this, you're unlikely to want to remove the cover very often. But if you do, buttons of this shape and size are very easy to unfasten and fasten again after washing. So you're just going to go in and out through the holes half a dozen times maybe. Okay, that should be sufficient. Turn over to the back and then just a few stitches to lock off through the stitches you've already made. And fasten off. Cut your threads and fasten your button.